Anger is one of the most intense emotions we experience. It surges up like a storm, sometimes unbidden, often unwanted, and can leave destruction in its wake. People around us, situations beyond our control, and even our inner thoughts can ignite it. We are prone to holding on to anger, revisiting it, and even nurturing it unknowingly through grudges and resentments. This common human experience leads many to believe that anger is a permanent part of who we are. However, Buddhism provides a radically different perspective, one of hope and possibility. According to Buddhist philosophy, anger is not a fixed trait, but a transient mental state that can be observed, understood, and ultimately dissolved. It is considered one of the three poisons that obstruct our peace and hinder our ability to connect with others. The goal isn't to suppress anger or deny its existence, but to understand it so deeply that it naturally loses its hold over us. Buddhist teachings invite us to approach anger with curiosity and kindness rather than fear or shame, helping us gradually transform it into understanding and compassion. The promise within Buddhist teachings is one of profound inner freedom. Imagine living a life where anger no longer controls you, where each moment of potential conflict becomes an opportunity for insight and growth. This is not an abstract ideal, but a very real possibility for those willing to engage sincerely with these practices. The Buddhist teachings provide us with time-tested tools that enable us to meet our anger with wisdom and compassion, uncovering the deeper truths that lie beneath it. In doing so, we discover not only a path out of anger, but a way to cultivate lasting peace and connection with ourselves and others. In today's video, we'll explore these key Buddhist principles in depth, examining how each can bring freedom from anger when applied sincerely and consistently in daily life. But before we start, please subscribe to the channel and ring the bell if you're interested in topics like this. Let us begin. Impermanence, or anicca, is a core concept in Buddhism that speaks to the transient nature of all things. The world around us, our bodies, our thoughts, and our emotions are all in constant flux. Nothing remains static, not even our feelings. This principle of impermanence has profound implications for how we relate to anger. When we truly understand that anger is temporary, it no longer feels so overwhelming. Rather, it becomes a momentary experience, like waves on the ocean, passing through us without defining us. Often we get entangled in anger because we feel it is justified. We replay conversations in our minds, nursing grudges, and reinforcing our feelings of resentment. This rumination traps us, making the anger feel like a permanent fixture in our lives. But by applying the concept of impermanence, we recognize that anger is just a mental and physical reaction to a specific set of conditions. When these conditions change, the anger will naturally dissipate. Mindfulness meditation is a powerful tool for experiencing this impermanence directly. In meditation, you might feel anger arise, a memory surfaces, or perhaps you recall a frustrating encounter. Rather than pushing it away or analyzing it, allow it to be there. Observe how it feels in your body. Perhaps there's a tension in the chest or a heat rising through you. Notice these sensations with curiosity, not judgment. You will find that as you watch these sensations, they begin to shift and change. One moment the anger feels intense, but with time it lessens, morphs, or even disappears entirely. This practice of observing without reacting helps you experience anger's impermanence firsthand. By watching your anger in this way, you see that it has no fixed essence. It comes and goes. This awareness begins to reshape your response to anger in daily life. Instead of reacting immediately, you remember that this feeling too will pass. Over time, this realization becomes a source of profound strength and resilience. You realize that anger does not define you, nor does it have to dictate your actions. With this insight, you gain control over your responses, freeing yourself from anger's grip. Practicing with impermanence also teaches you patience and acceptance. When anger arises, rather than resisting it, you meet it with a gentle awareness, understanding that it is just a wave passing through. You develop a softer, more compassionate relationship with your emotions, allowing them to flow without feeling trapped. In this way, embracing impermanence allows you to navigate anger with wisdom and grace. Compassion, or karuna, is one of the most revered qualities in Buddhism, often described as the heart of the Buddhist teachings. Compassion is the deep wish for others to be free from suffering, and it includes the desire to alleviate pain in ourselves as well. When we feel anger, it is usually because we have been hurt or perceive an injustice. Anger arises as a defensive response, protecting us from pain. Yet this defensive reaction often creates more suffering for ourselves and others. The transformative power of compassion lies in its ability to shift our perspective. When we approach our anger with compassion, we look beyond the initial hurt or injustice and try to understand what lies beneath it. We see that often people act in hurtful ways because they are suffering themselves. Recognizing this doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but helps us understand that their actions arise from a place of ignorance or pain. This insight can soften our anger, transforming it into empathy. Self-compassion is equally important. When anger arises, rather than criticizing ourselves for feeling it, we can acknowledge our own suffering with kindness. This gentle acceptance helps us approach anger as a natural human response, not a failure of character. By being compassionate with ourselves, we give ourselves permission to feel vulnerable, which is often the emotion underlying anger. With this self-compassion, anger loses much of its power over us, as we no longer need to defend ourselves so strongly. Imagine practicing compassion during a moment of anger. Perhaps you're frustrated with a loved one who said something hurtful. Instead of reacting, pause and try to see things from their perspective. What might they be going through that led them to act this way? Are they carrying burdens, fears, or insecurities of their own? By exploring these questions, you cultivate empathy, seeing them as a human being struggling in their own way. This shift in perspective does not erase your hurt, but it can make it easier to forgive and let go. Compassion also helps us see that everyone is doing the best they can with the understanding they have. This understanding creates a spaciousness in our hearts, making room for forgiveness and peace. Over time, as we continue to practice compassion, it becomes a natural response, arising in situations where anger would have once taken hold. Compassion becomes a new lens through which we view the world, helping us connect more deeply with others and ourselves. This shift from anger to compassion is one of the most liberating transformations we can experience, bringing a profound sense of peace to our lives. Detachment, or upekkha, is another essential quality in Buddhist teachings. It refers to the ability to remain balanced and unperturbed by external circumstances. One of the main reasons anger arises is our attachment to being right. We identify strongly with our opinions, beliefs, and perspectives, so when someone contradicts or challenges them, it feels as though our very identity is threatened. This attachment makes us rigid and defensive, fueling anger and conflict. In Buddhism, detachment is about letting go of the need to control or dominate situations. It involves recognizing that our opinions are not absolute truths, but simply one way of seeing the world. By loosening our attachment to being right, we create room for other perspectives, leading to greater understanding and harmony. Practicing detachment does not mean we ignore injustice or avoid standing up for what is right. Instead, it allows us to engage with these situations without the ego's need for validation or control. Detachment can be cultivated through mindfulness and self-reflection. The next time you find yourself in a disagreement, pause and ask yourself, why do I feel the need to be right here? What am I trying to protect? Often, you will find that beneath the desire to be right is a deeper insecurity or fear. Perhaps you worry that if your perspective isn't validated, you are somehow less worthy or respected. By recognizing this, you can begin to let go of the need to win the argument and instead focus on the underlying feelings. Detachment also involves recognizing the impermanence of our beliefs and opinions. Just as our emotions are constantly changing, so too are our thoughts and views. What we believe today may shift tomorrow as we gain new insights and experiences. By remembering this, we can approach situations with openness rather than defensiveness. We learn to listen without feeling the need to prove ourselves, allowing others to express their perspectives fully. Detachment is a practice that requires patience and self-awareness. But over time, it brings a sense of peace that is far more satisfying than the fleeting satisfaction of winning an argument. When we are detached, we become less reactive, able to respond to life's challenges with clarity and calm. This freedom from attachment does not make us passive, but rather empowers us to act from a place of inner stability and wisdom. In this way, detachment becomes a source of strength, allowing us to navigate anger with grace and resilience. Mindfulness, or sati, is the practice of being fully present, aware of our thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations without judgment. In the context of anger, mindfulness serves as a tool to observe the emotion as it arises, allowing us to understand it without being consumed by it. When we're mindful, we can see anger as it is, a passing emotional state, not something that defines us or dictates our actions. Mindfulness helps us break the automatic reaction patterns that fuel anger. For example, if someone says something hurtful, our immediate response might be to lash out. But with mindfulness, we create a small pause between the stimulus and our response. In that pause, we can observe our anger, how it feels in the body, the thoughts it generates, the urges it brings up. This observation gives us a sense of distance from the anger, enabling us to respond rather than react. Practicing mindfulness during moments of anger can be challenging, but it is incredibly transformative. Start by taking a few deep breaths to anchor yourself in the present moment. Notice the sensations in your body, especially any areas of tension or heat. Bring a gentle awareness to these sensations without trying to change them. As you continue to breathe, observe the thoughts that arise. You might notice thoughts of blame, resentment, or frustration. Acknowledge these thoughts without judging them. Simply let them pass like clouds in the sky. By observing anger in this way, you begin to see that it is not a fixed entity, but a collection of sensations, thoughts, and impulses. This insight helps you disidentify from the anger, realizing that it is not an inherent part of you, but a temporary experience. With time, this practice cultivates a spaciousness in your mind, allowing you to hold difficult emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Mindfulness also strengthens your capacity for self-control. The more you practice observing your emotions without reacting, the more freedom you gain over your actions. You realize that you have a choice in how you respond to situations, even when anger arises. This sense of choice empowers you to act with wisdom and compassion, transforming anger into a source of insight and growth. Incorporating mindfulness into your daily life can be as simple as taking a few moments each day to check in with yourself, noticing any emotions that are present. Over time, mindfulness becomes a natural part of your awareness, enabling you to navigate life's challenges with a sense of calm and clarity. By building this mindful awareness, you become less prone to getting swept up in the intensity of anger, gradually learning to respond with patience and understanding. Mindfulness does not eliminate anger, but it transforms your relationship with it, empowering you to meet it with wisdom and compassion rather than impulsivity. Through regular mindfulness practice, you start to see anger as a teacher. Each time anger arises, it offers an opportunity to observe and understand the workings of your mind more deeply. You notice the habitual patterns that anger triggers, certain thoughts, reactions, and judgments, and in seeing them clearly, you gain the power to choose a different path. This self-awareness leads to a profound sense of freedom as you realize that anger no longer controls you. Instead, you approach it with a sense of curiosity, learning from it, and allowing it to be a stepping stone on your journey to inner peace. Loving kindness, or metta, is the practice of cultivating unconditional goodwill toward oneself and others. In Buddhist teachings, metta is often described as a radiant warmth that emanates from the heart, dissolving negativity and fostering connection. When it comes to anger, loving kindness serves as an antidote by softening our hearts and helping us to view ourselves and others with compassion. This practice shifts our focus from judgment and resentment to understanding and acceptance. To practice loving kindness, we begin by directing feelings of warmth and kindness toward ourselves. This may sound simple, but many people find it challenging to be truly kind to themselves, especially in moments of anger. Self-directed loving kindness involves acknowledging our anger without judgment, recognizing that it is a natural part of the human experience. Instead of criticizing ourselves for feeling angry, we can offer ourselves words of kindness. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May I feel at peace. Repeating these phrases helps to create a sense of inner calm, making it easier to approach anger with gentleness. Once we feel a sense of compassion for ourselves, we can extend this loving kindness to others, even those who have hurt us. This does not mean excusing harmful behavior or allowing ourselves to be mistreated. Rather, it means recognizing the shared humanity in all of us, including those we may feel angry toward. Everyone experiences pain, fear, and confusion, and these emotions often drive people to act in hurtful ways. When we remember this, it becomes easier to see them with compassion rather than resentment. A powerful aspect of metta is that it gradually transforms how we respond to anger-inducing situations. For instance, if someone says something unkind, instead of reacting with irritation, we can pause, take a breath, and silently offer them loving kindness. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. This shift in focus allows us to let go of the impulse to retaliate and instead respond from a place of empathy. It does not mean we suppress our anger. Rather, we choose to channel it through a heart softened by compassion. The practice of loving kindness can also help heal long-standing resentments. When we hold on to anger, it often turns into a form of suffering that burdens us. By regularly practicing metta, we gradually release this burden, allowing old wounds to heal. This does not happen overnight. It requires patience and commitment. But with time, the loving kindness practice deepens, enabling us to respond to others and ourselves with a heart full of understanding. Loving kindness is more than just a practice. It becomes a way of being, a way of interacting with the world. Through metta, we cultivate a mind that is resilient and open, one that meets anger not with resistance, but with acceptance. This shift from resentment to kindness brings a profound sense of liberation, as we realize that we can choose compassion over conflict, kindness over bitterness. As we nurture this quality in our hearts, we find that anger has less and less space to take root. One of the deepest insights in Buddhism is the concept of anatta, or non-self. This teaching asserts that the self we typically identify with, a fixed, independent identity, is actually an illusion. In truth, what we call the self is a constantly changing collection of thoughts, feelings, perceptions, and memories. When we believe in a solid self, we are more likely to experience anger because we feel the need to protect this identity. When someone criticizes or disagrees with us, it feels like a personal attack, and anger arises in defense of the self. Understanding non-self can profoundly alter our relationship with anger. If there is no fixed self to protect, then the very foundation of anger is weakened. This does not mean that we lose our sense of identity entirely, but rather that we see it as fluid and impermanent. When we no longer cling to an unchanging self, we become more flexible and open. Criticism or conflict no longer feels like a threat to our identity, so we are less likely to react with anger. Practicing insight meditation, or vipassana, is one way to experience this non-self directly. In vipassana, we observe our thoughts and emotions as they arise, noting how they are constantly shifting. By watching anger as it appears and disappears, we begin to see that it too has no lasting substance. It is simply an energy that arises based on certain conditions and then fades. This understanding helps us detach from the anger, realizing that it is not us, but just a passing experience. As we delve deeper into the nature of the self, we also begin to see how interconnected we are with others. The boundaries between self and other become less rigid, allowing us to feel more empathy and compassion. When we realize that our anger is based on an illusion of separateness, we are more inclined to dissolve it rather than fuel it. This insight brings about a profound sense of peace, as we no longer feel the need to defend an identity that is ultimately illusory. Living with an understanding of non-self does not mean we ignore our needs or become passive. It means that we engage with the world from a place of inner freedom, unburdened by the need to protect an illusory self. This shift in perspective allows us to navigate conflicts with equanimity, meeting anger with wisdom rather than defensiveness. The more we understand the nature of the self, the easier it becomes to let go of anger and embrace a way of being rooted in peace and compassion. Through this insight, we learn to live with humility, recognizing that our views, opinions, and identities are not fixed but constantly evolving. This humility softens our reactions, making it possible to meet challenges with a calm and open heart. By dissolving the illusion of self, we find freedom from the need to react, allowing us to respond to life's difficulties with a sense of ease and grace. Buddhist teachings offer a profound roadmap to freedom from anger, guiding us toward a life of peace, compassion, and understanding. Through the practices of embracing impermanence, cultivating compassion, practicing detachment, and developing mindfulness, we gain the tools to observe our anger without becoming entangled in it. Each of these practices works together to help us transform anger from a destructive force into an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. The path to lasting peace requires patience and commitment. Anger is deeply ingrained in human experience, and it will continue to arise. But with the wisdom and insight offered by Buddhist teachings, we can meet it with awareness and compassion, allowing it to dissolve naturally. This journey does not end with the absence of anger, but with the presence of inner freedom, a freedom that allows us to respond to life with clarity and kindness. By practicing these principles, we cultivate a heart that is resilient and open, capable of embracing life's challenges with equanimity. This inner peace radiates outward, transforming not only our relationship with ourselves, but also with the world around us. As we let go of anger, we create space for deeper connections, greater empathy, and a profound sense of belonging. In this way, the Buddhist path is not simply a means of avoiding anger, but a journey toward awakening. We awaken to the truth of our interconnectedness, realizing that true happiness lies not in defending the self, but in embracing all beings with love and compassion. This is the ultimate freedom from anger, a life lived with wisdom, peace, and an open heart. May this journey bring you lasting peace, and may you find the strength and courage to meet anger with compassion, transforming it into a source of wisdom and love.